Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Back
Kick,
again?
Back again, kicking to you live. Hopefully, this time, fingers crossed, no more dang technical difficulties.
Right?
Because we've been running into those quite a bit recently.
Just a few.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, I'm Theo. This is Derek. We are your co hosts for the Heels of Time episode 4 billion, whatever it is now. I don't think we hit you up last week. It was a holiday weekend for us, so we took it off. Sorry. Family time. It's all good. Today we have a really interesting episode, at least interesting to me. Hopefully it's interesting to you guys as well. And it is, where exactly do you think the Wheel of Time is actually taking place in terms of the Earth?
That's a very interesting question.
I've always wondered that. And, in reading and looking at our background histories and everything that we've been doing, we came up with a pretty crazy theory.
A little different than the others out there, too.
Yes. And I thought it was really fantastic. And Derek kind of agreed with me, and then he totally solidified me when he actually showed me a couple of maps. And this still bridges back to where I'm like, man, I read that Iliad, read that Odyssey, and the first time I'm reading through the books, I'm like, this is like kind of like the Iliad and the Odyssey, right? And I'm like, man, how dope would it be if this took place in the Mediterranean?
Haha.
And contrary to popular beliefs and such, nobody else really thought that. And I was like, well, okay, maybe he just like picked in pieces. And as we've hopefully shown you guys in our previous episodes, well, yeah, he picked from different cultures, different areas. Yes, we've been mostly concentrating around the middle of the Mediterranean. However, there's way bigger global representation than just there. It's just
Right.
where our expertise more lies is in that region. But I'm like, geographically, if the wheel keeps spinning, that should literally mean it takes place on Earth somewhere.
Right.
So,
And you would
Derek, what's your
think-
theory? What's your thing?
Well, here's the thing. You would think it would be some notoriously mythological place if you have this book with this reoccurring theme about the last battle occurring, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they call it the last battle Tarman-Gaden, and that's probably like a combination of like Armageddon, Megiddo. There are a few others in there that aren't coming to the tip of my tongue right now,
It's all
but
good.
some kind of combination of those. And that has a real Megiddo has a real location, in the Middle East, in the Levant somewhere, and so I was just thinking, like, well, we're telling this fantastic story. Theo recently introduced me to the Iliad properly, like no, read the actual material, not just go see Troy. That's not doing it.
No.
So that gave me a different view, and so I'll get to it, and I'll just say real quick, the common belief seems to be, okay, the Wheel of Time area is a huge, vast place, and that continent that we're looking at, Randland, is probably some kind of part of Europe somewhere, and the Sanshin, they come from modern day America, which sunk in some catastrophe, and it's this chunk of islands. Okay.
Now the red herring about all that too. I'm going to break in. Sorry, bro.
Oh no, go right ahead.
Is and correct me if I'm wrong. Robert
Go ahead.
Jordan is like the Cientians accent is like Texan.
That's right. So
I thought that was a red herring.
I
But
think it is.
that's me.
I think it is, because I was just thinking about it this way: if the Wheel of Time is retelling stories, like turning the wheel and retelling stories, I maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't think of too many stories where the settlers go and then they come back and conquer the mainland that they came from. That's kind of like
That's
a
kind of
weird.
weird.
There's only in the lens of knowing the mythology of the Greek culture that says we were once Trojans. right?
If
Which
that.
that's not a universal thing either,
No.
because the Romans said something similar, right?
Yeah, they're like, hey, we're Trojan. We came from
So
Aeneas. Right.
so I'm guessing it's more of a political statement to, well, hey, we're Trojans too. We belong here, whatever, you know. So the point being, and why am I talking about Trojans, is that no, I think geographically, Randland is Anatolia or modern day Turkey. And mic drop, that would make Sanchin would be like Athens proper, like that area of Greece. And what is this huge Sanchin invasion? Well, that's leading up to that 10-year war that we never get to hear about in the Iliad. That's the fleet. And that's the conglomeration of nations, which over there in Sanchin land, they conglomerated all the nations.
It would have been
Over
city
in
states. Yep.
Right. Over in Randland, they didn't. They're all different nations. So that would make them a little bit weaker and take a little bit longer to get together to fight off the invaders. So what do you think about that?
See, I think that works. And I was like, oh, they came from so far.
Right.
Distance is also very susceptible to technology, right?
Right.
So if you go back to our ancient times, and I'm talking about ancient times, like probably right before the wheel was invented, it was how far can you walk? 8-10 hours, give or take. Then you had to be close to water supply. It couldn't be too hot because you got to drink more water, take more supplies. So it's how far could you go? Then the wheel. Oh, well, cool. Well, now I can like push a wheelbarrow or however they did it. Well, I can take more stuff and I can go further because I don't have to. I can use my tool set.
Right.
Keep going forward in time. You had planes, trains, and automobiles, right? So now, hey man, if there's a road, you can drive there. Hell, if there was a tunnel underneath the Atlantic or Pacific, we could drive to the opposite continents. But wait, we don't need to because we have planes now, right?
Airplanes, right.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Derek. Sanchin didn't have motorboats.
No, they had very, very large vessels.
But they was by row power, right?
So that's
wind, road.
That's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be mostly wind powered. But the thing that is a little bit different is maybe not. Their channelers possibly could have invoked winds.
Sure.
They don't really say that. That seems to be mostly what the sea folk do. So it seems like they would be under the pressure, so to speak, of trade winds.
Right. But no motor is what I'm saying.
And probably not. Probably not.
And if it is a motor, it definitely isn't like what we have now.
No.
So what's a far distance? The Mediterranean is a far distance. It's not like you can see the opposite side of it. So to me, this huge invading force comes in with all these boats and all this kind of stuff, and they're just like chugging along or blowing the wind or however you want to do it. We came from far away. Well, that is far away.
Right.
Go back 2,000-3,000 years ago, that's a heck of a distance to travel. So yes, in terms of that, I totally agree.
Right. Oh, and another one. They left to go, quotes, to settle that area. They left 1,000 years before the events in the novels. So it's like that would have been more in line with what you would think of as classical Greek Mediterranean, or maybe before that, the Mycenaeans, their technology or whatever. But either way, we come to this similar story. You have this kind of Western group on the other side of the sea that, they're there. And whether or not their story is coming back, or because they lost something that belonged to them, or even if it's a person who they're declaring, oh, this is our person. and we need them back. Um, they come in, and it's not like they're just there to fight a war and be like, we defeated your army, and now these are our demands. No, they're setting up shop. They're there for years. They're probably starting families. They're
Mm-hmm.
whoever's living there. It's not like they put them all to the sword, so to speak. So it's kind of like, well, you're now Greeks
Part of us.
also,
Yeah.
so to speak. Yeah, and you're paying taxes like us, and just keep on doing your thing. Um, that's all going on, and that is very similar. That happens in the Wheel of Time. As the Sanshin come and they slowly take over the western coastal areas, as they take more and more of that up, you get to hear more from the people in the novel, and they're basically like, it's the same. Actually, crime is down a little bit because they're actually better with dealing with that, and everyone has a job. So
Food, job, food, and food on the table.
right, exactly. So that's kind of the story there. Where the story differs is, yeah, the Shanshan battle, the Randland people, but the last battle doesn't occur when Hector comes out to fight Achilles. It comes when everyone comes together to fight the Shadow. So that's obviously where the story differs greatly. But doesn't matter. This is the stage. And last thing I'm going to say before we throw in that little mic drop moment, right?
Yeah,
is
we
that,
got more to go than that, man.
Well, no, the last thing I'm going to say before you add, I should then say, is that, well, now I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, bro.
No, it's all good. Oh, no, I lost it. We'll come back to. I'll throw it to you.
You'll remember. You'll remember it in a second. Just
It's
interrupt
okay.
me when you. I interrupt you too much. Sorry, man.
No, it's all good.
So if you actually look at a map and a current map of the Mediterranean area, did you figure it out?
I thought of what I was gonna say.
Go for it.
So the wheel is turning. So before you say what you're gonna say, which might even be a little bit different, think about it like this: like maybe in this turning of the wheel, because mountains have moved and oceans have sprung up, maybe the Greek Isles are farther away, and maybe they do sit geographically speaking where America is, and maybe. What we think of as modern day Turkey really is that far away because of some discrepancy of geography due to the breaking of the world that happened. That being said, to account for that, remember you have the Blight to the north, and then they don't know how far the sea goes to the south. And for example, I like to think of, when thinking about this, I like to think of an idea of an Earth that's almost covered up in ice, but you have this band around it, like the dark line on a basketball, or the trench of the Death Star, if you will, where there's still enough sunlight, enough energy to sustain life in that region, which would be like, around the Mediterranean area. So back to you. Thanks for letting me.
No, man, that was good.
In.
Yeah. So, as Derek was alluding to, the maps change. Maps change now. Coastal spread and everything, and tectonic plates. So, if you look at a modern map, you're like, the Mediterranean is not that big. It kind of is. Maps are notoriously built to show wherever your country is usually bigger than what it typically is. Americans are kind of bad with that. So they're not perfect. Yeah, they're not perfectly organized in terms of size differentiality. That being said, if you look at the coastline of Turkey and you look at the coastline of Greece, and then you overlay it on a map of what we have for the Wheel of Time area,
right?
They're pretty darn similar.
They really are. You check it out, please. Look at the Mediterranean map.
It's actually, I would say, funny, but if you, especially for me, it really looks like around Salonika, Thessaloniki. Of the peninsulas, it's not necessarily the lower peninsula of Greece. I think it's more of the more northern part. If you look, there's 3 fingers that come down. I guess try to get it right.
Okay.
Come down
Okay.
kind of like that
Right. Right.
in the Wheel of Time.
There you go. Yep.
Yep, there we
Mm-hmm.
go. And if you go north, in the north of Greece, it's like a very, very similar handprint. I'm just going to call it the handprint.
Yeah.
Make it
yeah.
easy. You could say it was further south. That you could make that, but just like the little islands and some of the shifting, very darn similar. And then you look at the opposite coastline of the Turkey area, dang similar. And it'd still be far apart. It's not like you could see it necessarily from like one end to the other. So it'd still look like a vast armada coming at you.
Right.
But I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, it's so synchronous. And like I said, I have the theory that he took a lot from a lot of stories, of course, but I thought he based it a lot on the Iliad specifically, and then the Odyssey as well for the journey aspect. And I'm like, well, what better place to have this geographically than in the same area? And it's just a different telling of a different way of doing things. Derek will get a kick out of this. He doesn't know I'm going to say this part. But
Go ahead.
Archimedes, right?
Yeah.
Killer mathematician.
Brilliant.
However, almost every single of his militaristic inventions fail. Modern day. We can't get them to work. Like, they don't work.
Right.
Yet, story after story, you could say legend or myth or what have you, say, Archimedes' death cannon worked.
Right. Right.
And like, it burned the ships. They just went, and all of a sudden it just burned the ships. I remember this episode from Mythbusters. They tried absolutely everything. What they had to do is basically shoot a friggin' laser into the mirror to like overcompensate for the sun. And like, we have no idea how, in terms of modern tech, we can't rebuild it.
Right.
And someone's like, well, maybe they're just joshing us and he never did that stuff.
Like propaganda.
Right. Kicker is, though, we can't produce Roman concrete. Still. And it's all in quotes. Who knows? Maybe we can, but they don't want to, do it.
Right. No, I hear you.
But it's the perfect blend of whatever they had plus some volcanic ash.
Right.
We can't get that chemical composition. But it's like, well, the Roman roads are still there. So obviously they made them.
They made them to last.
3,000 years later, they're still actually used in Italy. So who's to say if all of this tech didn't actually just fade away? You're like, well, Theo, where are you going with this? We don't know about Atlantis. We don't know about any supernova volcano eruptions that could have possibly occurred because there's no history on it. What if, and this is some far out stuffs, what if this telling of the wheel is like Archimedes' time, and as stuff goes on, we can't really know how it's going forward. We don't know how the tech is, therefore it's magic.
Oh, okay.
And who's to say that you're like, well, how did all of this occur? Why is there so much water? You're talking about a little space. What if Mount Etna did erupt for real? A lot of people, if you're in the Pacific Rim with the Ring of Fire, who's to say that a catastrophic volcanic eruption didn't cause a cascading effect across the world, even potentially?
Sure.
It's a breaking of the world, right?
Right.
Maybe the break and the hammer just poof, nuked everything, literally megatons. All that ash flew
Dark in the
air.
sky, that kind of stuff.
And then all of a sudden it's an apocalyptic event. And then when the air clears, you have a band. That's how it's going to start. It's going to be, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger the longer the time goes around of a temperate zone.
Okay.
So to me, why couldn't some crazy stuff go down and then all of a sudden Africa is underwater? Australia's gone. Half of Asia may be gone. Maybe the United States is even gone.
Right.
And it just kind of it blew up the earth, so to speak, to bring it back together, but it's far enough apart and the technology got destroyed enough that you have to rebuild society again.
Right.
And if you're looking at it from that perspective, they do say that the Mediterranean is the birthplace and the cradle of life, right? Yeah, it started in Africa, of course, but in terms of modern day culture, what's it based on?
It's sort of like when we became agricultural,
yes,
et cetera,
industrial, even I would,
or even a trading civilization, even.
Yep.
Yeah, no, most definitely.
And I'm like, interesting. So hey, we got a person that says hi. We're saying hi back. So I'm like,
thanks for watching, Sydney.
Yep. Again, much appreciated. So who's to say that hasn't occurred now? And just be, or even get more crazy, let's say it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And these two entities just don't know what's out there. The earth is flat, right? We can't go to the horizon because we're going to fall off.
Right.
So you don't want to go south because it's the unknown. We don't know what's going on there. The Blight's up north. The Blight could be what? 200, 300, 400 miles, 1,000 miles, but it's
go all the way to the North Pole. Who knows?
Right? Or it could be 10 miles. Probably bigger than that, but nobody knows what's beyond the Blight to the north. Nobody knows what's too far south past the South period. It's not really even talked about.
Well, to your point, there could even be other people and cultures out there in Wheel of Time, but the technology is limited to like horseback and pigeon, so
you can't get there.
You wouldn't know if anyone else is out there. Yeah, and if like even if you knew someone was out there, you wouldn't have a regular communication between them to know what's going on.
No.
Right?
Or anything that's consistent, at least.
Mm-mm.
And then, of course, governments, they're going to, like, chop that down because you don't want insurgents or any kind of possibility of, oh, you're not telling me the truth. Oh, no.
Or there's a better place to live.
Where's my taxes going to go?
Right.
So there could be a lot of things in play. And let's face it, unless we want another, like, 13 to 25 books to go through potentially the entire world of Wheel of Time, may have been really crazy to actually do. So this could just be a little microcosm of what's actually in the world.
No, I think that is so. And the one last thing I want to add is when you look at these battles, it's like at first it's like they talk about it's like 200 white cloaks, 700 white cloaks. That's like a brigade or whatever. It's like, or a battalion, I think, a battalion, 700 soldiers. It's like, well, that's a lot. And you're kind of thinking, well, what is this, medieval or Renaissance? So, I mean, everyone has to do their own part. It's really hard to get people to hack another body up with an axe. So, okay. But then you start seeing like, all right, then there's this kind of civil war starts and you start to see armies getting in like the thousands and the 10,000s, but still the largest armies you see aren't to the end of the book, and they're only in the hundreds of thousands. And maybe the joined forces all together amount to two armies that are in the 1 million each or in the low millions. So when you look at that and you're like, well, this is the end of the world kind of scenario, and everyone, like literally
everybody,
like old mothers and grandmothers are picking up like
forks and knives,
butcher's cleavers and pitchforks, and like old like men that have been lecturers their whole lives are like they're picking up the garden hose and whatever, and like affixing other weapons and learning how to shoot their bow that their father gave them and whatever else, right? So I'm just thinking like, this could be the whole world population and it just got so devastated, but that would make land travel even more difficult and awkward. Why would such few people need to go over such a vast distance if the Wheel of Time area was so large Like there's plenty of area to conquer. Like it wouldn't make as much sense as if like maybe it's just a smaller area than what people kind of want to
Imagine.
project onto it. Or right, exactly. And I know we have some statistics and some information, but it's hard to say what ultimately Jordan himself originally meant. And and I'm not trying to misrepresent him, but if he has the concrete answer somewhere, maybe it'll come out someday.
Or if someone actually has one, holler at us.
Right, exactly. But so to your point, we don't really know. We have no idea. But so even if the whole world was just this Mediterranean, or if it's the only area that knew about it and the rest of the world didn't even know this epic battle was occurring there,
could go down like that.
Could go down like that. Either way. I like it.
Yeah, I was going to say there's been epic battles where if it wasn't for, honestly, man, if it wasn't for tech and worldwide news and satellites and all that stuff, if there was a war, if there was a war in Europe,
right.
Would we even know about it?
No, absolutely not. Unless some telegram came, and then we'd have to. Someone's reading it like in the town square.
Right, and then that
is a war that broke out.
And hell, that would be probably 3 to 5 months after the fact. It'd be literally old news at that point.
Old news. It'd be coming by what, boat?
Maybe, yeah, pigeon. Not across the ocean.
No.
So, who's to say? Who's to say?
I like it.
And the other thing that I would have, it would be interesting to see and understand would be if the modern theory, because we're the abstract. I'll be honest with you.
We're the fringe.
Yeah, we're the fringe group on this one. Most people say the Cincinnati American, got the American accent of the Southern Texans or whatever.
Right.
So, cool. If you look at the Southern states, and if they have a Texan accent, there's not a lot of water by I mean, there's the Gulf of Mexico, obviously, but in terms of border, there's a lot, but that's not a ton of water right there. So
yeah, you wouldn't think they'd base their whole. Now, remember though, to your point, I think you'd be pretty strong with today's geography, but we are proposing that the geography has changed at least a little bit.
Yes.
Like even if we're proposing these are the Greek Isles and the Greek mainland, then some of it's still missing or moved around or even recovered from the bottom of the ocean,
Yep. So yeah, it still has changed. It's not like a 1-for-1, like, oh man, it's perfect inlay. It's not.
Like the Shanshan have the crystalline throne now. Maybe that is Atlantis that came back up from under the water.
Right. That is very true. So I think we made our point.
Yeah.
What do you think, Derek?
Yeah, I think we've made it. I think it's time to drop the mic, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so Derek's a genius, as we all know this already, or at least I do. And he was like, so we've been keeping saying, right? The Cientian are the Greeks. So in reading the Iliad, the Odyssey and stuff, what are Greeks called? Achaeans. Okay,
Yep.
Cool. I'm reading the stuff, no big deal. And then Derek's like, dude, guess what? It's your baby, dude. You got to say it now.
Well, it just so happens that by one letter off, you can re-scramble all the letters of Achaeans to spell Xianchen, and vice versa, Xianchen to spell Achaean. So write it down and look at it. And when you see it, it's kind of hard to not see.
And I'm like, dude, that's like perfect. At least, again, with a slight change.
Right.
But again, over time, that is going to change anyway. Just food for thought. I like our theory. Hope you guys do too.
I think that just shows that Robert Jordan was very clever to have a huge toolbox on his rules for how am I going to rewrite or retell a story. Sometimes the words are scrambled. Sometimes they're in reverse. Sometimes they sound similar. Sometimes they're just a few letters different from the stories you know. It's the way that he spun his story, so to speak, I think we'll be talking about for a long time. And I think once academia realizes what a gem for American literature Robert Jordan was, more academia is going to take a look at this stuff and really go over it with a fine-tooth comb. That's just my bias because I do love the series. But what do you say? Should we end it on that note, Theo?
I think we need to, man. I think that's like,
yeah,
man, that's huge. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, today was our comeback episode, so to speak, after a couple weeks. Thank you guys for viewing. Much appreciated. Like and subscribe. We're going to be a little more consistent going forward, but sometimes family comes first, and so does health. And definitely keep that in mind for everybody else. And like and subscribe to our channel if you dig us. Like and subscribe if you don't, then hit us up with negativity. That's okay too, because any press is good press.
That's right. And if you ever want to hear the gossip between shows, look for us on Twitch, where we regularly play Vampire Survivors.
Yup. That game's hella fun. And that was a pun too, by the way, but you know. All right, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you next